Rick Harrison came into the world on March 27, 1965, in Lexington, North Carolina, and his family history already carried a weight he would feel for years. His father, Richard Benjamin Harrison Jr., had the strict discipline of a Navy man, while his mother, Joanne Rue Harrison, tried to hold everything together at home. Rick had an older sister named Sherry, but she died at 6. That loss left a quiet hole in the family. Then in 1967, when Rick was only 2, the Navy sent his father to San Diego, and the whole family had to move again. It was the start of a life filled with packing, unpacking, and never staying long enough to feel settled. Each move meant new schools and new faces, and little by little, it shaped Rick into someone who learned to adjust fast. When he turned 8, things got even harder. That was when the seizures started. He would lose control, and the episodes hit about once a month. Sometimes the muscles in his body hurt so badly afterward that he stayed in bed for days. While other kids ran around outside, he lay still in a dark room, trying to recover. Time kept passing, and so did the chances to play, make friends, or feel normal. But something unexpected happened during those long, bedridden hours. He picked up books, then he kept picking them up, one after another, until reading became his world. He later said that reading saved his life because it filled the silence, kept his mind awake, and gave him something to love when his own body refused to cooperate. While his peers were navigating the playgrounds of San Diego, Rick Harrison was navigating the vast landscapes of literature. The seizures that anchored him to his bed were a curse, but they provided a strange gift, the gift of time and focus. In the dark, quiet rooms where he recovered from his monthly episodes, Rick found a lifeline in the written word. He didn't just read to pass the hours, he read to understand how the world functioned outside his four walls. One series in particular became his personal Bible, The Great Brain by John D. Fitzgerald. The protagonist, Tom Fitzgerald, was a young boy in late 19th century Utah who possessed an uncanny ability to turn any situation into a profitable venture. Tom's great brain for capitalism and his ability to see the angle in every problem resonated deeply with Rick. He began to see that intellect and strategy were tools that could overcome physical limitations. By the time he was a teenager, Rick had self-educated himself in history, science, and the art of the deal, developing an encyclopedic memory that would later become his trademark. The traditional school system of the 1970s was not designed for a child with epilepsy. Between the frequent absences caused by his seizures and the lack of specialized support, Rick found himself falling further and further behind. By the time he reached the 10th grade, he made a pivotal decision. He walked away from formal education. It wasn't an admission of defeat, but rather an acknowledgement that his true classroom was the open market. By the age of 14, Rick was already experimenting with the fringes of society. A brief period of drug use led his parents to enroll him in a rehabilitation program. This was a sobering turning point. Sitting in those counseling sessions, Rick began to realize that every choice carried a consequence. He decided that if he were going to take risks, they would be calculated business risks, not self-destructive ones. He moved to Las Vegas and began his career as a teenage entrepreneur at local swap meets. He realized early on that people wanted the prestige of high-end brands without the high-end price tags. He began traveling to New York City's Chinatown, purchasing counterfeit Gucci bags for $10 and flipping them in Vegas for $100. In an age when most kids were worrying about prom, Rick was clearing $2,000 a weekend. When the market shifted, he pivoted to Jordache jeans, proving that he possessed the most vital skill in business, the ability to adapt. Personal life moved as fast as his business. At 17, Rick became a father when his girlfriend Kim gave birth to Corey. Just 2 years later, they welcomed their second son, Adam. Married and raising 2 children before he was 20, Rick faced immense pressure. The strain of young parenthood, combined with his relentless drive to work, eventually led to divorce in 1985. Rick took full custody of his boys, a decision that cemented his role as the family's provider. Simultaneously, the Harrison family was facing financial ruin. In 1981, a real estate collapse in Kentucky wiped out his parents' savings. Left with only $5,000, the family moved to Las Vegas to start over. They opened a tiny 300-square-foot coin shop. It was a humble beginning. Rick spent his days in the shop and his nights repossessing cars to keep the lights on. They were outsiders in a rough town, fighting for every dollar, but they hadn't vision for something bigger. Rick knew that the real money in Las Vegas wasn't in coins, but in pawn loans. However, the city had a strict moratorium on new pawn licenses, tied to a population cap. No new licenses would be issued until the city reached 250,000 residents, a number most officials thought wouldn't be reached for decades. Rick refused to accept this timeline. For 8 years, he called the city's statistics department every single week. He tracked the growth of the city with the obsession of a hawk. In April 1989, when the population finally hit the magic number, Rick was the first person at City Hall. He secured the license and opened the gold and silver pawn shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard. It was the birth of an empire built on persistence and a deep understanding of human value. Rick spent the next 2 decades trying to change the public's perception of pawn shops. He wanted to shed the image of the shady back alley dealer and replace it with the image of a professional, family-run business that dealt in history. After years of pitching his concept to production companies, the History Channel finally took a chance. On July 19, 2009, Pawn Stars premiered. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural explosion. By 2011, the show was drawing over 7 million viewers an episode, rivaling the biggest reality shows in America. The chemistry between the 3 generations of Harrisons, the old man, Rick, and Big Hoss, along with the antics of their family friend Chumlee, turned the shop into a global landmark. By 2013, the shop went from seeing 70 people a day to over 5,000 tourists daily. Rick's expertise allowed him to make legendary deals on air. He purchased original Where the Wild Things Are drawings for $250,000, a massive hoard of silver over $111,000, and a rare 1932 Lincoln Roadster for $95,000. Each deal was a masterclass in negotiation, proving that his childhood reading had indeed paid off. Fame brought immense wealth, but it also brought intense scrutiny. In 2016, the shop's public image was tested when police raided the home of Austin Chumlee Russell. They discovered a massive collection of illegal firearms and controlled substances. While the more serious allegations were dropped, the incident forced Chumlee into years of probation and drug counseling. However, the legal battles didn't stop there. In 2022, Rick's mother, Joanne, filed a lawsuit against him. She alleged that while she was hospitalized years earlier, Rick had manipulated her into signing away her majority stake in the business. This bitter family feud highlighted the deep-seated tensions that often accompany massive success. The most heartbreaking tragedy struck in January 2024. Rick's second son, Adam, who had mostly stayed out of the spotlight, died of a fentanyl and methamphetamine overdose at the age of 39. Rick spoke openly about his grief, describing the nightmare of watching a child struggle with addiction and the helplessness of a parent in the face of the opioid crisis. He transformed his personal pain into a platform for advocacy, calling for stricter border controls and harsher penalties for those trafficking lethal drugs. By 2025, the landscape of the Harrison empire changed once again. After 23 seasons, Pawn Stars went on an indefinite hiatus as the contract with the History Channel expired. Corey Harrison announced he was moving to Mexico to start a new life, leaving the future of the shop's television presence in doubt. Despite these losses, the death of his father, his mother, and his son, Rick Harrison continues to look forward. With a net worth of nearly $9 million, he is currently developing Pawn Stars 2.0, seeking a new network to carry on the family legacy. He recently became engaged to Angie Balashkin, finding a new spark of hope in a life that has seen more than its share of darkness. Rick remains a man who sees every problem as a puzzle, proving that no matter how many times life knocks you down, there is always another deal to be made.